What's going on, my people? You're listening to The Score, an urban music education podcast hosted by Eric and Justin, where we discuss tips and strategies on how to become a more effective, compassionate, and culturally responsive music educator. What's going on, my people? This is Eric.
And this is Justin.
And we're your hosts for
The Score.
Welcome to episode 104, Beyond Words, Colleague Reactions to the Symphony of Well-Spoken Communication.
Okay. All right, brother. We back in.
We are back in.
How have you been, man?
Let's say the first word, tired. Let's be real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we've ever shied away from being honest and upfront on this episode, on this podcast, but tired in a good way, bro. I think listeners, thank you for charging us up in a good way.
For sure.
Anytime they either saw me in person or
I done got DMs and text messages
pulling the coattail, like, all right, I got a bone to pick with you, and I'm over here like, man, did I do something wrong? What's going on? Yeah, I need to record another episode. And so I want to first say to the listeners, thank you for your patience, because one thing that Justin and I took the time to do this past semester was get you used to our new roles. So if you haven't tapped in a little bit, Justin, tell them real quick, man, what you're doing now, and kind of give us an update on life, if you will.
Yeah, so I would say I'm a little tired too, because life is a little different. It's similar in so many ways, but yet it's very different. So I'm the student pastor at my church, so I am responsible for the high school and middle school portions of our student ministry in terms of engagement, teaching curriculum, social events, making sure that they're streamlined with our kids ministry to our bridge ministry and so forth and so on. I instituted a new midweek connect where we have community, we study, and we have food, and we just do life with our students. And I'm also the community coordinator for a nonprofit organization that works different government funded grants to reach lower income, at-risk communities to help kids with education, with resources and awareness about life. So I've been putting together, I have 2 events that I'm running this week or in the next 2 months. One this month is called Find Your Path Career Symposium, where we're bringing out professionals from different worlds as far as media, STEM, arts, entrepreneurial, medical, and industrial certification, and providing them with sessions for them to learn about these things and internships with the city of Houston and Hire Houston. And then I'm doing another one that's dealing with the conversation about substance abuse amongst our teens because of how life change has happened with some of the world issues as far as the pandemic and COVID and the Hurricane Katrina and so forth and so on, and how easily our kids can get lost in that world of trying to find identity and just trying to find hope in the environments that they're in. So that's just a small tidbit. I'm constantly in meetings. I got like, man, we got a 12:30. Let's do a working lunch. I'm that guy. I'm not on as many flights as my brother Eric, but I am driving to and fro, meeting at coffee spots. I took my student ministry team to a spot called First Cup in Pearland for a meeting for a new initiative that I'm doing. And it was like, man, this is nice. I was like, yeah, I do this, man. I go to coffee shops. I don't drink coffee. I just be there for the Wi-Fi and the aesthetics. But so yeah, that's a little bit into my world.
Love it. I love it. So yes, as Justin mentioned, this is actually my first full week. And what I mean by full week, I mean 7 days at home since the start of 2024.
Wow.
Travel actually kicked off, mid-December with obviously Midwest. Then I took off for 2 weeks to Mexico and did some work down there, and vacation and work. And I'll talk about the addition to that in a little bit. Then January was New Mexico MEA, Oklahoma MEA, and Missouri MEA. Then February was Texas MEA, Kansas MEA, and unfortunately I had to cancel this past week for CBDNA Southwest. And shout out to my boys, Dr. Andrew Hunter, past guest, my Dr. Brandon Hotelen, past guest, and a great new friend and brother that I have in this work as well, Dr. Frank Bettis out of Kansas, out of Baker University, and more to talk about what his involvement and what we're doing in the projects. But about, I think it was November, if not October, our vice president at Consummer, Mike Campies, gave me a great opportunity to serve the country of Mexico. So in addition to the Southwest United States, I'm also the educational support manager for the country of Mexico in Conselmer. And this past week, man, it was a great little feather in my cap that one of my first events that I helped kind of pretty much from start to finish. As soon as I got the assignment, I got to work. It's going to be the first ever marching arts symposium in collaboration with Impulso Marching Latinoamérica in Puebla.
Can we hold on. We got to stop right there. I want all the listeners to just hear this is now when I say Eric is my friend, this is like my real friend. Like we done hung out, been to each other, all of that. So to hear his vision, which I heard years ago, his passion for this, his desire to make sure that equity is possible in all parts of the world, and not that we're taking that and trying to frame it to make ourselves feel good, but we're meeting those people in those communities where they are with how they create music and providing a service, a resource to make their music better, not making it better because you should play this, but however y'all play that, let's put some instruments in your hands. Let's give you professionals. Let's bring people. Man, just I want to be like you when I grow up, man. I want to be the Eric Jimenez. That's the goal.
Well, that does mean a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Before we hit record, Justin, because he knows me so well, literally we've been rocking since 2006. He knows my demeanor, and I'm not one to kind of post about what the work I'm doing, and it just kind of I celebrate others in doing so, but. This event and the folks that are going to be announced within the next couple of weeks of clinicians and keynote speakers, that every single one of them that I extended the invitation to essentially are going over there to collaborate. Yeah. We're not walking in with a savior mentality. Right, we're not going in there. And we're gonna go with because the state of Puebla itself has over 400 marching bands, and we're going on the weekend of Cinco de Mayo, where it's actually celebrated nowhere else in the country of Mexico, which can be a whole episode. But you know, I'm really happy of the work that I get to do, and you nailed something, man. Because I tell people this all the time. I hope at the end of the day, because of the relationship and just overall the nurturing that I've been able to do to increase the impact of music ed through band directors and instrumental music teachers, I hope at the end of the day they do pick the Conselmer brand because of that. Now, if they end up picking up another one, at the end of the day, I'm creating access to music education. The mission hasn't changed, bro.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And you kind of said that already, man. So I really appreciate you being able to recognize that, and I hope folks are recognizing that too, because that's and we can talk about the HBCU reunion that you hosted, and we were able to put together back at TMEA and bringing folks together from all walks of life. That you know, people, everything is where it should be. I'm really happy of the work we're doing, and just excited to see what comes from this. But you know, I this is something, Justin. Our episode today is a topic of discussion that it's honestly been it's beyond words, and a big reason I brought this up, man, is that you and I have both probably gotten this our entire life. You know, first we get told, "Wow," first it's out of shock. You speak well. You speak well, or you know, you're very articulate, and so this has been happening more often, with more opportunities to speak, with more opportunities to present, to be in front of folks that have not seen us present or haven't seen us speak or haven't heard a podcast yet, and they get shocked. They're like, "Wow, man!" And then on top of that, I get the "Wow, can you say that again, Jose Hernandez?" You know, and I'm like, and I make the face like, "What? You mean the way it's supposed to be pronounced?"
That's
horrible.
Know?
And they get, yeah, but you say it, then, you know, you put that little flavor on it, you know.
Okay.
Just like, and you already know my face,
That's
man.
Cringy.
And I unfortunately, there's sometimes that I don't do a very good job at hiding my face. So I called it the Beyond Words, the colleague reactions to the Symphony of well-spoken communication. So I kind of want to unpack that a little bit with you, Justin. At what age do you think was the first time that you probably got that, or what, you know, were you in middle school, high school, was it the college level, that, you know, when you first got it, I'm pretty sure that it didn't rub you the wrong way, probably, you know what I mean? Because I think as people deliver it, they think it's well intended and a compliment. So where do you go back with this when your first instance?
I'm gonna go back like third grade, and I'm gonna be honest. For me, it was I didn't know because it wasn't until my grandmother kind of availed it to me. I think there's a level of innocence that happens at a younger age that you just, you're a third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader, middle school student. You're just living life. And so what I was being taught at home and how I was expected to respond and how my parents and my grandmother and my family was like, speak up, pronounce, all of these types of things. To me, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Hearing somebody say, man, you speak really well. Wow, you speak really well. And when I would go home and tell my parents, yeah, my teacher, I'm not going to mention her name, right? But my teacher was like, oh, man, you speak really well. And my grandmother had to tell me, she said, you have to remember. And I don't think she was saying this to create, I got to preface this statement. It wasn't to kind of create this all-seeing eye of like everybody has race and it's all. No, she was just saying the reality is there's a line drawn between cultures because we don't know about each other. There's a lack of life that we don't do with each other. And so when they're introduced to something that they have a different narrative in their mind, they're reminding you that line is still there. It may be in the sand and it may not be very visible, but that line is very much still there. And so it just kind of made me think. And when I started to hear it again as I got older and as I started doing more things, it just helped me see everything in like a real light. And that there's a level of ignorance. Some of it could be a level of, racism, but a lot of it is because we don't know. And we subscribe to this idea that those that are black and brown, there's a talented tenth. When in actuality, all of us have this ability. All of us speak well and have ways to articulate ourselves. And it's back to that place that we go to where when you or me in a room by ourselves, we have a different lingo that we go into. But when we walk into these spaces, we want to, I don't want to say talk a certain way, but we want to present ourselves in a way that people can receive it rather than trying to be who we usually are 9 times out of 10. So, yeah, around third grade going into middle school, man, I started to hear that a lot more. I remember being the student council president in 6th grade, and it was just kind of like, wow, it was like I was Barack Obama before Barack Obama, but you know what I'm saying? But it was just one of those things where for me it was normal because every other space that I lived in my life, my experience of life outside of school, that was the expectation. The expectation was to communicate. The expectation was to give deep answers. The expectation was to allow your personality to be seen. And so once I was made aware of these things shouldn't be said, and most of the time when they're being said, it is from a place of ignorance. It's all about how you then attend to the situation. Because I think you and I both could be like, what are we doing? Like you said, like they doing all of that. It's like, bro, what are we doing right now? Yep. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was there. And even in our journey of working together, I can look at people's faces when they would see us in person at UIL with Heights or Hamilton or doing all of the things, or if I was hosting a portion of Region Band, I was like, hey, good to see all of you. Could we get you guys to register here? They were like, oh, wow. And it's like, what are we wowing? Like, I'm a human being, you're a human being. Like, we may come from different paths, but we want to communicate well. So that's the spotlight. Now I know yours is a bit different because we're also adding in the aspect of Spanish and this other language that people already perceive or think that they know. Well, they know Spanish. There's no way that they can know the the language of the land. And it's just kind of like, what are we doing in America in the year of our Lord?
Man, your metaphor of drawing a line in the sand, that the line, although it might not be fully visible, but is, and it's still there. Yeah. That for me is what brings me back to, and this is crazy because I started reflecting on it because somebody actually at the company said, man, but you it's not only that you speak well, but you present well, like you have this certain, and I said, well, man, I can chalk it up to DJing, bro. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, imagine at the age of 14, I'm introducing the court of honor at a quinceañera, and I'm reading it off of a piece of paper that was just written 5 minutes ago. And so my first time speaking to hundreds of people, I'm sitting there and y la quinceañera and the court of honor, the next to come in. I can still remember like being so nervous, but it's the act of doing it and over and over and doing it again. And then I started emulating DJs on the radio that I started, I can copy KXTN 107.5, the Hanoi crowd, you know, and and it still happens, you know, or Jam and Jay on 104.9 here in Party, you know, and mimicking these voices, I started to pick up nuance on how people speak, that I can mimic voices pretty well. But then we've in the premise of this podcast, I've kind of reclaimed my voice.
Right.
I've put it to the forefront that you and I get credited for being unapologetically ourselves. But it takes me back to senior year in high school, man, where I was one of few folks of color in my international baccalaureate classes. Mm-hmm. And so I had a few honors courses, IB courses, but this specific course was, I remember, it was English 4 honors, senior year in high school, and Miss Schweitzer, may she rest in peace. I remember I was that kid, bro, that I don't think I had to, if I remember correctly, I was that not the over exuberant kid, always raising my hand, trying to answer the first question, kept my mouth shut until I get called on. I would answer and respond and always get my homework, get straight A's and those kind of things. But I remember that day she went off topic and said, actually, I have a topic of discussion that I want to bring up to y'all. And I remember still looking down. It was like, you know, yesterday I went to Walmart and it was a Hispanic employee. I'm gonna get your feedback on this. And I remember seeing and going up to the young man and saying, excuse me, do you speak English? And the kid turned around and said, yeah, and why wouldn't I? And so I'm here to ask you, class, was I wrong for asking the young man if he spoke English? Right. And hands started popping up. Nope, you weren't wrong, because most of them don't speak English. Nope. And I'm sitting there like,
you sitting there in the class, like,
I'm like, they talking about people like me. Like, I'm literally in the class with them. Like, I got an A in this class. Like, I started thinking, so I raised my hand, and it was again, I'm not the type of kid that did that. I remember that, and I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am, but why wouldn't he?
Right.
Like, what do you mean, Eric? And I said, what if I was working that day? I'm your student. Do you have a lower expectation of me and what I'm able to do here in this class? Because I've been pledging allegiance and sitting in this classroom just like everybody else since kindergarten, and I was born here. But at the same time, I'm Hispanic. So are there lesser expectations for him? And instead of imposing that discomfort on that person, why didn't you impose it on yourself? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, why didn't you just start speaking English? And in the event that they didn't, then you would now feel uncomfortable yourself, and then you can make that adjustment.
Right.
And I mean, I remember that day because everybody was like, oh, looking at me kind of like side eye, like, oh, who's that? Because I didn't speak up, because I didn't talk, because even in the majority of that class, we're not folks that I usually hung around with outside of the school hours. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't my Northside crew. It wasn't my Heights crew, you know? And I remember that day, she was just like, oh, wow. Okay. I have a different mindset now, Eric. Thank you. And my sister, 2 years later, had her going down the roster first week and said, excuse me, last name Jimenez, Roxanne Jimenez? Yes, ma'am. Any relation to Eric Jimenez? She's like, yeah, that's my brother. She's like, yep. He goes, you have some big shoes to fill, young lady. And I was like, and so my sister comes home. She's like, thanks, Eric, for being so damn smart that, you know, I have to now live in your shadows. But that moment, man, I've had more of those. And more recently, because of our uptick of getting the opportunity to go present in different parts of the country, that people get shocked, man, that we get up there and we have a commanding presence, that we speak well, or that we can even arguably entertain a crowd, like, you know, that we keep people's attention. So now I'm at a place of going back to that senior year. Why are our colleagues getting so surprised? The same way that my teacher, if I was your student, do you have a deficit mindset for me? Do you have a cap of what I'm able to do both musically and linguistically? Yeah. Like where is this stemming from? And I think you tapped into that a little bit in your first description. It's kind of one of those, like, based on your environment, based on your exposure, based on your interaction with a diverse group of people. And using the term diverse appropriately in the aspect of economically, socially, geographically, religiously, like, name all the demographical things that we can add under that umbrella. It's why are we still capping a certain population, a certain student, a certain type of kiddo, and like, again, as well intended, it's not. It's not. Yeah. And so hearing all that, bro, what comes to mind? What's striking your heart right now?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it is the dark space in our minds that create boxes that we want to put people in,
Hmm.
that takes away our insecurity or embarrassment of not knowing. And what I mean by that is, like, they were okay saying that in front of you, Eric, because in their minds they didn't equate you in that group, right? They didn't put Eric in that box. For me, I remember being on a broadcasting team in high school, and this was a team we would do weekly announcements, we would do video announcements, have funny little bits and things. And I remember we were talking one day, and one of the girls that I went to school with, white girl, in my mind, I don't think she meant harm. We grew up together in middle school and all that. And she would always, say, well, Justin, you're not like them, like you don't really act like them. And I would be like, what's them? Who's them? And she was like, like black people, like, I mean, like, you're black. And to this day, I'm 36. That's still on my brain. And I don't think she meant that in a negative or like detrimental way. I think she was just talking about her experience. And her experience says that in that specific context, I have a certain view of black people, but then Justin represents another form. And I think instead of separating people, I think you put them in the whole box, because the diaspora of the African American experience is very wide, just as much as the Latino based diaspora, right? Like, whether we talk in Mexico or Puerto Rico or Cuba, there's so many spaces and places. And I think part of it is we put people in boxes that make us feel comfortable with our lack of knowledge, because we don't want to confront that I actually don't know, or I'm insecure about this, rather than just asking the questions and being okay. I like what you said, putting both of us in vulnerable states. Right? I think we can grow better when both of us are in uncomfortable positions, whether that's me learning from Eric about the Latino community when we started working together, or vice versa, him asking me questions about the black experience that he may have had an experience before, but I'm somebody different. Eric is somebody different than I probably went to school with and grew up with. And so I think it's that American task that we have, where we like to compartmentalize, because it gives us power over whatever it is that we have.
As we take a break from our discussion, we're jumping into the segment called In Rotation. During this time, each of us will get an opportunity to share what we're currently listening to, favorite artists, genre, album, playlist. If you have any recommendations, drop us a line on our social media platforms at PodTheScore, or send us an email, podthescore@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
In rotation, folks. All right, so there's so much that I can say, but I'm gonna center it on one artist. She recently popped up on my TikTok and my reels, and this artist is named Jennifer Pena, and she had gotten quite a bit of a blossoming career during the height of Selena, kind of the mid to late 90s. And actually, her father, Abraham Quintanilla, Selena's father, was managing her. And she left the music industry to go focus on her family, had a child, and has recently made a return. And so I literally was telling my wife, like, man, she should have had a better career like this. There should have been more, because she was such a good singer. And sure enough, she got a new song out. Yeah, she just dropped a new release. But her voice, and I bring it up because her music, her style is going in line to what Grupo Frontera is doing right now. That sound, that what I would argue is a slower tempo cumbia than what you would find in Los Tigrillos or Control. It's a more groovier kind of approach, and Jennifer Pena was already doing that. So it's kind of like this resurgence of what was happening in the past with this modern twist with Grupo Frontera. So I'll just give you one of them, Si Tu Te Vas or Abrázame y Bésame. But if you just type in Jennifer Pena on Spotify, I would go with her top 5 right there and just go down the list. But yeah, there's somebody that I've been listening to recently, and the kiddos are digging her music now too. So I've been doing a little bit more of a cumbia, tejano, conjunto norteño trip recently, but I'm really excited to share her music. Justin, what you got?
All right, so nothing ratchet this week, but Cory Henry. If any of you out there are listening to The Score, Cory Henry is a name you would know, because he is the jazzer of all jazzers, an amazing pianist. Neo soul, straight ahead jazz, fusion jazz, R&B. Whatever. He's that guy. He's an amazing musician. But Cory Henry's start is in the church. the black church, the African American church in America, is where we don't. If he does not play behind that organ at a young age, we don't know who Cory and Henry is, because that was his formation. That's right real. And so he just dropped a new album called Church, and it's literally like 22 songs. I've been jamming it for the last 3 weeks, and it takes me back to how I got introduced to music. It's his take on all of the classic church songs in the black church experience, whether it's Amazing Grace, whether it's Burdens Down, I Love the Lord, He Answers Prayer, and he's featuring some very pivotal and historical gospel artists, but he's doing all of the hymns, but he's doing his take. So it's super funky, super vibey. I mean, it's everything, and he's singing on these records too. So if you're into Cory Henry, if you're into fusion things, please check out. And if you're a person that is trying to get an experience about what does church sound like, what does black church sound like, this is a great album because it reaches every aspect, the slow, the mid-tempo. I mean, he's even talking like the pastor in between songs and introducing offering music and all of that kind of stuff. So check out Church by Cory Henry.
All right, we're back. So Justin, as we have to give our teachers and our folks some takeaways from this, as a music educator, how can we create an environment in our classrooms, in our teaching spaces, that one celebrates folks from different walks of life, different ways of speaking, different ways of communicating, but at the same time we're still educators, right? We got to find ways to encourage that skill development. I can still think of leadership training where I had kiddos and tell them like, okay, great, you're speaking very, articulate, you're saying everything the right way, but you're talking to the flutes, you're talking to the front row. Right. The percussionist heard nothing that you had to say, and I just said that a couple weeks ago in helping one of my middle schools that I'm a resident clinician for, that they allowed the students to go conduct, and the young man was speaking awesome, first time doing this. And I was like, cool, man, you said the great things, but brother, the trombones didn't hear you. And like, what do you mean, sir? Like, if you talk to the percussion, everyone in between is going to hear you, man. So shoot for the percussion, and then just trust that everybody else is going to hear you. So in hearing all this, man, what would you tell some of the teachers on how to develop this? And one, to not have experiences that you and I had arguably growing up that would deter us or embarrass us from being open to develop ourselves.
Yeah, I think honestly, allowing mistakes to happen. And I don't think we speak enough to that. I think that allowing like having a classroom, if that makes sense, where students can make mistakes. And what I mean by that is, are you in a position where as a kid makes a mistake, they feel safe enough to say a composer's name wrong, or to say a concept wrong, or to say something that's incorrect? And instead of being like rushing to correct them or rushing to be like, well, that's totally wrong, allowing them to even possibly say that a few more times. And then what does it look like to correct a student on the back end when they're not in front of a class, when they're not in front of people, that makes them feel safe? I think most of the time, especially dealing with middle school students, I had the joy of being able to teach middle school and high school. What you're dealing with in middle school is confidence. What you're dealing with in high school is respect. Two different things, right? In middle school, that kid that can't say that composer's name right when you may be asking them or trying to recall information you've reviewed in class, they no longer have confidence to want to speak in class or play that instrument now, because now they've devalued, or you've made them feel devalued in what they said. And specifically, I had the experience of teaching in a Latino community. So there are so many different accents and different ways that words are being said based on the home language that's happening, that's then taken across the bar line, right? It's the same thing with music, right? How did I play drums at church that carried over into how I played drums in the band? How did Eric play his saxophone when he was listening to the various sounds of his family that he took over into the band hall? And I think for us, we have to understand that that's a part of their learning, and how we curve that learning is very important. And then in high school, it's about respect, right? If I'm telling you, man, no, you got that wrong, man. Like, we're talking to semi-adults there. Yeah, they may not be paying bills and all that kind of stuff, but we are talking to adults. So how would you talk to your boss? I know if me and Eric was at a a band director's function and I said something wrong, or I'll tell you how Eric used to help me. If I said something wrong, if we were doing a Latin piece in jazz and I said something or pronounced it wrong, he would. Now we bros. He could have easily been like, "No, man, that's not right." He took that as a teaching moment for the community of students we were teaching, and then he would give me the backdrop on the back end when we were talking in the office. So even as an adult male, that did wonders for me in a space where I was in. I don't like Spanish is not my first language, so I want to have respect for the art form and the language. But I think we have to understand both of those worlds. There's confidence with your middle school kids, there's respect. And if we can open up the space for them to still be respected, but to be corrected, to God, I mean, that's even better. And then with our middle school kids, if we can give them the confidence by saying, hey, earlier when we were working through this piece and you were counting that rhythm, we really couldn't understand how you were counting it. Could you count it a little bit clearer? Could you say it like this? Then that makes that student say, oh, I was doing it right. Oh, okay, I can fix that. And so can we create spaces for mistakes? Because if we're honest, that's how much of the great music that we play and that we love to tell people about, whether it's, European music, whether it's most of this stuff is happening by mistake. Like,
Yep.
these are not musicians that are like, I thought of this. No, man. Some of the most wonderful and beautiful melodies and things happen by chance. And so I think we have to create a space where you honor a person's foundation by helping them build it. But if somebody looks at Eric and says, oh, no, you need to say it like this, then what are we taking away from him in terms of the culture and in terms of the environment he's bringing to the table? So that's what I would say, man.
Ooh, I love that because it makes me think of going to the deficit concept of these kids don't rent instruments. These kids
That's
won't
good.
buy Step Up Pro instruments, or these kids don't pay their band fees, or add whatever sentence stems you want to add on there to under-resourced, underserved programs, Title I schools, both urban, rural. I mean, like you can talk, literally whatever. And how do you know if you don't create the opportunity? That's like plain and simple. How do you know they won't take private lessons? Have you offered them?
Right.
And if you're trying to create this opportunity for kids to improve on their public speaking, on their opportunity to just express themselves, you and I started doing things even at the concert, that we would have on campus, our in-house concerts. At every single concert that we had, and folks can attest to this, we gave students an opportunity to present the program, to introduce themselves. And we used to just do that, just the program first. It was kind of like, the next band is going to be the symphonic band from Hamilton Middle School under the direction of Mr. McLean. We're going to be performing 1, 2, 3. And then we added on, you know what? We serve a large Spanish-speaking population. Let's add a student who's willing to say it in Spanish. And here's the great part. Sometimes it wasn't a Latino student.
Right. That's real.
It was just the fact that they spoke Spanish, or they were taking Spanish and they wanted the opportunity, but we gave them the opportunity. Here's what happened. Kids stumbled. Kids got nervous. But again, I think back of 14-year-old Eric announcing the quinceañera chord, stumbling over his words, but it's because I was giving the opportunity. So as teachers, one, lead by example. Yeah. And Justin said it. It's like, I'm sorry, I did say that wrong. Or admit you made a mistake, like own up to it and say, I'm working on it. I'll do better. Because this goes into saying people's names and saying them correctly and your students' names and those kind of things. It really goes to a fact of the educator controlling the environment and facilitating that conversation. Because if you hear another kid talk about another kid and how they talk and why do you talk like that, and it's like, he talks like that because that's his upbringing. Like, check the kid. Like, if that happened in front of me, I'd be quick to say, hold on, what you talking about?
Right.
And I'm so quick to clap back that it's like, man, didn't you mispronounce so and so last week? You know what I mean? Like, I'll clown the kid. I don't encourage that, by the way. So that's but
build relationship.
Yes, all day. But be willing to challenge those stereotypes, because
that's good.
That is where we're at now. It's in me being willing and able to travel and represent Con Summer all over the country. with the way people talk in Kansas City, Missouri, versus the way people talk in Tulsa, Oklahoma, versus the way people talk in New Mexico. It was all different. And then, mind you, let's have somebody from New York that's living now in Alabama. Like, you know what I mean? They're not going to lose their accent right away in the same way that somebody from Mexico City is going to speak different from a paisano from the northern Mexico, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, let's be real. And that's what's beautiful about the world we live in, is that we are all different, that we all speak differently. If you hear my dad speak English, you say, oh, he has an accent. Yeah, but he also has a master's degree in an American university.
Facts.
You know what I mean? It's like, so does that negate his intelligence? Does that, you know, say he's not able to communicate well? You know, and this is where I'm at, where a teacher can start reflecting, like, oh man, I have kind of made fun of kiddos when they mispronounce things, or I kind of teased them when they, you know, bro. And this was in college, man. I don't know why this just came to me. But I'll be very transparent. I had one of those seasonal jobs at my freshman year fall semester that I went to go work at Bath and Body Works.
Wow, look at you, man.
Yes,
nice.
I was the guy in the back stacking all the shampoos and the soaps and and vulnerable moment. But I remember reading this like smell on the thing, and I was like, yeah, I don't know where this one goes. I remember asking the manager. She's like, which one, Eric? I was like, the pomegranate right there. And she's like, what did you say? I was like, the pomegranate. I don't know where that goes. And then she goes, the pomegranate? And I was like, yeah, of course. Bro, I'm already first year of college. I had I think I had a 4.0 that semester, you know, and I'm saying over here saying pomegranate. You know why? Because not once was that word said in my house.
Hello.
Literally, not once.
I think you got to pause right there, though, because I think part of it is we're expecting. Sometimes we have an expectation of things where in my house, growing up, I didn't know any classical artists. You know what I'm saying? Like, was I hearing classical music? Yeah, but if it wasn't the Frankie Beverleys, if it wasn't, you know, Mahalia Jackson, all of those names that I'm able to say clearly, well, when I step into listening to, you know, Chopin or Brahms, that's a little bit different, you know? And so I think that that's a very important. And I think when you said, you know, let's really look at the stereotype, but let's also honor the genesis story of the kids that we have. And one thing that I remember is when we would put those kids up to read and introduce a band or read parts or have little spots, kids love to do it because it was a picture of what the band and who the band was. So, and it gave us an opportunity to say, hey, this kid needs to do this. Hey, Cesar, you need to, because you're super quiet, you need to do this. Oh, no, Mr. McLean, you know, no, you need to do this. And you know what else it did? It helped me build rapport, because when we would be setting up for the concert, all of those kids would stay after school. I would feed them. And I say, hey, let's go up here. Let's make sure the chairs are set up for the first part of the show. I want to go through each person. And they would be like, okay, cool. So now I'm able to help them before they get in front of people. What am I building for that 7th grader? Confidence that 10 years down the road, when they get to high school and now they're the drum major, they're relying on something that we built in 7th grade to help them say, hey, trombones, I need you right here. Let's go, feet set. Let's take the first 8 steps, backwards march, all of that. That's where we build that. And we got to start thinking of it like that. We got to start thinking about how can we build our students with all of their nuance and uniqueness. It's a unique way to have a certain flair with your accent. How can we use that, right? There's a certain flair that, you know, black people, y'all, mama them, right? Like, how can we still make the most of that without making that feel like that's something that I need to hide, right? So, man, that's good.
So, folks, if this is an indicator of how 2024 will be from the Score podcast, you in for a treat. So we are excited to jump back in, and we appreciate your patience as we got settled into our new roles. But if you can tell, the mission and the vision hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And so we are still here to serve. We're still here to expand thought processes. We're here to challenge sometimes ourselves. And for those of you that have gotten to meet us individually, if you ever come up and say, you know, Eric, I want to challenge something you said, I literally will say, cool, come on. What you got? Like, let's go. Because we have to, again, lead by example. And I have to model that expectation that I'm asking folks to do. So if you come up to us and say, hey, you know, actually, when y'all said X, Y, and Z, I've had this experience, and you know, and so if you're hearing this and it resonated with you, and like Justin and I have gotten so many times, if people come up and say, "I'm sorry," and like, we've never met. Why are you apologizing to me? But it's because we allow folks to kind of reflect, and then things surface in their past that says, "Oh wait, I did that. Oh wait, I said that. Or I've done that to a child. Did I cause them to leave music? Did I, all the things started going down the line." And for our boy Dr. Hunter said this, once you know to do better.
Gotta do better.
And that's where we're at now. And so if you can reflect on some moments where either you were the person that, like Justin and I, the receiving end of, wow, you speak well. And if you were not as, I guess you could say, as nuanced or kind as we were, or you hit them back with, why wouldn't I? And I think either a response is truly appropriate, but Justin kind of said at the beginning, it's about how you react and how you take these things. Yeah. And so hopefully this episode was informative. Justin, man, any takeaways, any things you want to wrap up the episode with?
Man, it's a joy to be back. I'm happy to be back, man. This is something that I look forward to. And most importantly, one of the things we still want to push, we want to be the platform for other voices. I want to echo this as much as Eric has said. We want to be the platform for other voices to come and to teach and to educate and to inspire. Like, at the end of the day, we have a wealth of knowledge, but there are so many other people that are out there that we want to be a part of this, and we want to make sure that we introduce you to them so we can deepen everybody's teaching bag and connection bag with their students and their programs.
So do us a favor, rate and review us. But the great part about what we do, and you've noticed this, we're not on the band director groups, we're not in the music teacher groups, we're not dropping and saying like new episode there. It's on our independent pages, we're put it on the podcast social media pages. But what truly helps is when somebody sends a link to somebody and says, bro, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. Hey, I just checked these guys out. Listen to this. So if you could do us a favor, help us out with that. Share the episode with somebody this would benefit, and we hope to hear from you soon.
This has been another production of The Score. Connect with us on social media at Pod The Score. Send us an email, podthescore@gmail.com, or visit our website, revivalmusicproject.org. If you've enjoyed this episode, do us a huge favor. Rate and review us. This will help us reach even more listeners. Intro music by Justin McLean. The rotation and outro music by Ben Borges. And as always, let's continue to impact these lives through the vehicle of music.